Should we give it a go? Thank you for inviting me here this morning to share your sitting and give a little chat, a little talk. I like little talks, short talks. Then we can open it up to the group and ask questions or share parts of your own practice. I wanted to start off with a small koan. It's a pocket koan. And this brings me back to my residency at the Providence Zen Center, when every Sunday we would have an open meeting. And guests would come and we would serve tea and popcorn. And that I would imagine 90 or 95% of those weekly Sunday meetings, this koan would be used to introduce the new people and to torture the older students. But over time, it took on many forms, and it has since that time regained in substance in my practice. It came from Zen Master Sun Sunim, my grand teacher. He would hold up his watch and ask the guests and the older students, who were sometimes nodding off, "What is this?" If you say it's a watch, or you say the band is blue, or you say it tells time, those are true, but in the Zen world, those are partial answers. If you say it's composed of metal parts, if you say it needs to be wound or it needs a battery, it's the same thing. It's not like that's not the truth. So if you ask me, what is this? I say it's 7 minutes after 1. So that's the function. That's what this is here for. So that would be 100% answer. I'll do another one just because it's fun. What's this?
Blurred image.
There we go. If you say it's a glass of water, if you say it's H2O, if you say it came from the faucet, all those things are true. But it's not a complete answer. It's a relative answer. So I'll ask myself again, what is it? Ah, so I drank from it, and I know myself whether it's hot or cold. So that's the function. I have a lot more of those, but I'll spare you. So to me, those two examples of koan are wider than just koan discussion. They really point to realization. They point to the function of our practice. I think early on when we're children, maybe when we're 2 or 3, we begin to get an eye. I have 8 grandkids, so I see this in action. I've seen it in action. The oldest grandkid is 16, so for 16 years, I've watched the evolution of the small eye start. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I don't like that. I like that. And once that starts, it seems to continue on, not only in that sort of truncated way, but in a way that our school teachers and our parents support us in learning and picking up talents that allow us possibly to succeed or to become better at the things that we would like to do. And in school, you got to pass your classes. But this is a knowledge base. And the other side of the coin, or the other parallel track, is the wisdom base. The wisdom base is more, at least initially, what our direction is in the Zen tradition. I don't want to be misunderstood that wisdom base is better or worse than the knowledge base. And the wisdom base has other names like not knowing. So we have our knowledge, our knowing base, and our not knowing. I think where the rub is when we don't differentiate, at least in the beginning of our practice, and we see everything through the relative point of view. So what I'm pointing at here is that we've already got the relative pretty well nailed. It's been instilled in us since we were kids, to the point of blocking out the other not knowing, or the more intuitive, wisdom based, which sometimes can't be actually talked about clearly, but we know it's there and we experience it. So if I have a message to this part of the talk, it's that we need to, or it would be nice if we started to embrace more that not knowing. We saw with the example of the watch and the water, all the original examples were knowing examples. And knowing seems to, most of the time, point to like or about. It's not the essence. It's about parts of it, or it's a commentary on. And then until we begin to pick up or recognize the not knowing aspect, can the function appear for us. Here's a quote from Dogen, a shorty. To carry yourself forward, this is from the Genjo Koan, to carry yourself forward and experience myriad things is delusion. That would be that relative knowledge point of view where we're in charge and we do the directing and we prune, as Beaumont says, and we get the answers we're looking for. The next sentence from Dogen, that myriad things come forth. So we open ourselves with not knowing and experience themselves. That's awakening. In my travels around these years of practice, I've noticed a lot that awakening sometimes takes a back seat, and what takes the front seat is knowledge based. Many sutras are read and discussed, and lots of stuff goes on, and none of that is bad or good unless it leaves out the other part of this relationship, and that's the not knowing. So if we can read a sutra and not know while we're reading it, it'll open up in different ways than just hearing the words. Here's another piece of Dogen, another Genjo koan, very widely known. To study the Buddha way is to study the self. That's a relative teaching. To study the self is to forget the self. Now we're starting to turn. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad things. It appears for us in our not knowing. When actualized by myriad things, our body and mind, as well as the bodies and mind of others, drop away. No trace of realization remains, and this no trace continues endlessly. So what I'm voting for here is not a rejection of the intellect. What I'm voting for here is to bring don't know into position so we can experience our practice as alive, as active. For many years, I've been reading the 10-verse Kanzeon Sutra. And in our sutra books, it's in English. And I believe that after reading it, there's a certain understanding that comes out of that. Kanzeon, praise to Buddha. All are one with Buddha, all awake to Buddha. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, freedom, joy, and purity. Through the day, Kanzeon, through the night, Kanzeon. This thought comes from Buddha mind. This thought is one with Buddha mind. Easy to understand. And that's what we do. Then a few weeks ago, or maybe it's even months now, during my little practice sessions, I started chanting in the Japanese, in the transliteration. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know Japanese. I cannot understand. So I did this for quite a while. Kanzeon, Namubutsu, Yobutsu in, Yobutsu en. Bupo soen, Joraku gajo, Chonen kanzeon, Bonen kanzeon, Nenen jushin ki nenen furishin. Kanzeon, Namubutsu, Yobutsu in, Yobutsu en. Buposo en Joraku ga jo, Chonen kanzeon, Bonen kanzeon, Nenen jushin ki nenen furishin kanzeon. Namubutsu yobutsu in, Yobutsu en. Buposo en Joraku ga jo, Chonen kanzeon. Bonen kanzeon, nenen jushin ki, nenen furishin. Kanzeon, namo butsu.
Yo, Butsu, Upo, Soen, Jo, Rakugacho, Jo, Nen, Kanzeon, O, Nen, Kanzeon, Nen, Jushin, Ki, Nen, Furishin.
Yeah. So this is more of a Dharani in the Japanese or in the Chinese tradition. It's that the words have a certain power to them, and that power won't appear if you don't know Japanese. It has to appear somehow subliminally or through not knowing. And that's what I found after doing this for weeks, that it will open up through not knowing. The willing to not know, the intention to not know opens up other doors that are more conducive, in my recognition, to realization. Without realization, Zen is just a philosophy. Let's see. I have a lot of paperwork here, so disappeared. Here it is. This is from Thich Nhat Hanh. You can read a sutra two ways: as teaching, relative teaching, or treat as philosophy. The treating it as philosophy is not Buddha's teaching. That's Thich Nhat Hanh. So how do we not, in our practice and in our lives, not disparage the intellect and not treat it as a second-class vehicle? Well, then my thought came in like this, and the focus of it was very clear to me because it's outside our tradition, but it's called affirmative action, where, as we know, certain underrepresented people of culture were not let into universities. So then they instituted affirmative action. This is my understanding anyway. And it affected the balance, and they were allowed more access through tilting the scales a little bit. And I feel like it's our responsibility as practitioners, as much fun as the philosophy of Zen is, the reading of sutras, the collecting of materials that are very important, to use the idea of affirmative action and give don't know some space. We've spent a whole life with this intellectual training. We know how to do it. That's not the issue. What we've left behind is the faith and the trust and the intuition in not knowing. I noticed when chanting the Kwanon Sutra, you start to listen with more than your ears. It's in a foreign language, so what am I listening for? The sutra, and you start assuming equal roles, and you start to listen with your whole being. You listen with your eyes. A lot of us have experienced this. It's nothing special. You listen with your elbows. You listen with your belly button. It fills you. And it fills you because of not knowing, because your phone line isn't all clogged up. You're not on 10 different thoughts at once. And I think the other part of that is, I mean, sometimes when I'm sitting, I dream that I'm in Hawaii, or I think that I'm in Hawaii, and I make these little, I take my partner and we fly to San Francisco, and then we fly to Hawaii. But what's going on here? My mind and body are split. I'm sitting here and I'm off in Hawaii. As pleasurable momentarily as that may be, it's how a lot of us spend our lives. So we can become one by not using our intellectual prowess all the time. Use it when it's necessary. Many of us have had a successful life helping people or in business, but those tools need to be transformed, I believe, in order to become useful for realization. And let's see, I had a Dogen. I want to finish that off. Here's Dogen again, Genjo Koan. When you first seek Dharma, you imagine you are far away from its environs, but Dharma is already correctly transmitted. You are immediately your original self. And we know that. Every one of us knows that. Have we attained it? Are we realized? If not, please let's use affirmative action in our own practice, in our own lives, and make true realization possible, which is the Buddha's message. It's not good conduct necessarily. It's not being a good girl or boy or, helping someone across the street, though all those things are included. Again, those are relative teachings, good teachings. I want to read a haiku to soften my overbearing proselytizing. I don't know if Danan has read this one before to you because it's a little bit of a favorite. The clouds come and go, providing a rest for all the moon viewers. The clouds come and go, providing a rest for all the moon viewers. And I think in Zen, the moon is usually referred to as enlightenment, the moon of enlightenment. And the clouds can obscure. But in this poem, the feeling is that the clouds give you a break. And we know you can't stay on top of the mountain all the time. And the clouds come and they give you a little taste of reality. So my capping phrase, pay attention to everything. And that includes the clouds, the moon, your moods, your feelings, good, bad, no matter. Just don't judge them. Don't become attached to them. Then you will see the clouds and these obscurations as a compassionate offering from Kanzeon. Kanzeon's the bodhisattva of compassion. When I first started doing the chant in Japanese, I said to Bo-Mun, hey, what am I going to do with this? He said, well, ask Kanzeon for something. Pray or. So I thought, wow, what can I ask Kanzeon for? I don't want a Porsche. I don't want a snowmobile. I don't feel good about asking for more money. What? And then I thought, what Kanzeon has to offer is the hearing of the suffering of the world. That's what Kanzeon does. That's who Kanzeon is. That's the function of Kanzeon. So I asked Kanzeon if I could hear the sufferings of the world. And right away, I got my answer. Right away, immediately, before I even got done asking, I was reminded of someone that I said something harmful to or unkind to. And I saw that as Kanzeon's response. And I saw that as not different from myself. Pay attention to everything with an open heart and an open mind. Thank you all for letting me share my practice. It's rare that I get this chance. I hope something rang a bell, and if not, I hope that we can discuss it now and maybe some new bells will be rung in your speech.
Thank you, Jian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely, clear,
And helpful.
and helpful.
Kanzeon.
Kanzeon. Would anyone like to step up and share something, or is there still time, Danan, to do a little?
There is still time.
Okay.
I will share, I can start. The poem, the Basho poem, is such a, I don't know, all timely reminder. I can frequently think I'm in this place where the clouds, come and go and they don't bother me, and I just sort of, they part and or they come together and I can rest, and I get that. But I really don't appreciate so much the value. I miss the real deep intrinsic value in these moments of rest, when things aren't clear, when I'm confused, when I stumble out of bed and I can't quite get my focus early in the day. And that's so valuable to remember this, that the clouds are there as function. And that function is the experience of the world that I have. Sometimes very clear and I can hear and pay attention to the cries of the world. Sometimes it hurts. I'm listening so much and I have to stop, and the clouds kind of come and give me a little rest. It's a great reminder. Thank you for the poem.
Yeah, thank you, Jian. I just would say quickly that I appreciate what you were saying about the reading the sutras and opening, and not focusing so much on the words and not knowing, being open to the not knowing. And when you were talking about that, it really there was a deeper understanding. There's like, I have these little aha moments thinking back to these phrases, like the Zen phrases that we say, like, how our practice is a special transmission outside the sutras, not depending on words or phrases. And just you talking about that and the way you did, just like bringing it right directly to our lives, there was a deeper understanding opening to that, to that teaching. And then I was thinking about Bodhidharma, standing in front of the emperor as Avalokiteshvara, he said not knowing or don't know. And I was thinking, what you were talking about made me look at first being kind to myself, being compassionate, how hard that is sometimes. And sometimes it helps. I was thinking it helps to start there, to then open to everything, to be open to everything, because I was like, and I was also thinking about, I appreciated the John Tarrant video that you had shared and Danan shared with us. And they were talking about the feelings, that's how we connect to everyone else. We can be open and compassionate and kind of see Kanzeon everywhere, and it's the feelings. And I tend to not do that. I tend to initially want to push feelings away, or maybe note them and like, oh, okay, move on from that. But thank you for your capping phrase and your teaching it, kind of to remember to be right here with everything that's rising, and that includes whatever I'm feeling, and that helps me connect to everyone else. And it's hard to just do that with yourself. Sometimes it can take great compassion just to be in the moment with oneself, with this self, and then be able to give it away. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Jian, I always learn so much from you. And couple of things I really enjoyed and benefited from your discussion of the different qualities of mind between knowledge and wisdom. Not two separate universes of existence, but recognizing each one as a presence in our own human experience. But we become entrapped, I become entrapped in the knowledge-based interpretation of my world. That discussion of that teaching yours was very helpful to me, specifically because I'm about to, on Tuesday morning, I'm gonna go into prison. And we're going to explore the theme for this month. The volunteers just met. The theme for the month is going to be the question of whether the mind becomes a prison, whether our mind is the prison. Frequently we talk about, yeah, there are the stone walls around us when we're in there, but the real prison is our own assumptions and ideas and convictions and identities, self-identities, and how that sometimes doesn't serve us well. Well, you've helped me kind of decide that when I present that discussion, it's going to be, it's helpful to think of these two universes of human experience, knowledge and wisdom. The not knowing is, as you say, not necessarily better, but it's the experience that liberates us from the knowing, from the prison of words, phrases. I think of it as conceptual reality or ultimate reality, but this is even better, knowledge and wisdom. And how realizing the mind might be the prison, we can discern the distinction and see wisdom and experience that freedom, joy, and purity of mind as liberating us from that prison. So that's what came up for me during the talk, and I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jian, what you sort of, when you're talking about the not knowing, to me, what you're talking about in part is uncertainty. And one of the things I've really found helpful about Buddhist teachings is this idea that certainty so gets in our way. And I'm very certain of so much, and I love to be certain. Yesterday, this is making me think about this current, everything we're going through as a country now is so much anxiety about the election and what's going to happen. And I've got my anxiety if Trump wins, and I'm pretty certain there's plenty of people out there who are terribly anxious if Trump loses. But yesterday I was at a rally. I went out with my walker and showed up at a rally at a prominent corner in Lincoln, where I now live. And there were about 75 people, and we were mostly women, but there were some men out there too, great, great men out there with us, chanting and holding up signs for Harris. And then there were a few people, guys in trucks, who came by with lots of loud roaring and gunning their motors and yelling Trump, and kind of coming by repeatedly to let us know how certain they were of their choice. And I guess what I'm kind of reflecting on is how in that moment I so much knew, thought I knew, but there's a deeper not knowing that even though it's not going to change my political perspective or my vote, there is a deeper not knowing that that I need to hang on to, or to recognize that I don't know, I don't know the people who look at things differently than I, and that I don't know how things are playing out now, and I don't know what will transpire. Endless not knowing. And so I just think that allowing myself to be uncertain is really valuable, because it represents a kind of a letting go. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sweet.
Thank you, Jian, for sharing what you shared about the not knowing in language. You reminded me of something in my own life. 37 years ago, I walked into a shop intent on finding another iteration of goddess. I walked out of the shop with, 10 or 15 little cards of Kuan Yin. And on the back side were just a few verses of prayers. And when I read them, I realized that the ones that I couldn't say and did not know and could not comprehend were the ones I wanted. Kuan Yin, Puza. Kuan Yin, Bao Jian Shou Kuan Yin. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you, Jian. And it has to do with your koans of the watch and the water class. Which again, I found very helpful when you talked about the insight the Buddhist interpretation or vision, or Zen vision of that object is found in its function. Its function. That seemed to really help, but I'm not too sure exactly how. It seems to point me in the right direction for working with koans. But I'm wondering if you could say a few more words about the operation of function and its relationship to the wisdom.
Yeah, I have a simple take on that, and that is that our practice, as is our life, since they're not separate, practice, realization, life, all one, that they are activities. So that's where the function ties in. And the capping phrase to all this is that each koan is our own koan to make friends with, to travel with, to ask favors of, or to give favors to. So I think on that level, it does become a personal thing. So we have to not know and be okay with, as Linda mentioned, the uncertainty. And not try to clear up the uncertainty before we make friends with our life's koan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And kind of continuing on that idea, Jian, is it safe to say, I really appreciated the way you pointed out the function also, and that's the actual essence is the function. And so I guess I'm wondering, thinking kind of my own concept, is it the function of not knowing, is that allowing oneself to let go of certainty? Could that be sort of in other words, the question is, what is the function of not knowing? And it seems to me, as I just speak about it a little, that the function of not knowing has a lot to do with freeing.
Mhm.
Because all this knowing gets in the way so much. It's like so much
Mhm.
certainty, and I'm always wrong, or I don't know. I could be right, wrong. You never know.
I agree.
Well, that's an honor for you to agree with me on something. Thank you.
It's an honor for me as well.
I just hope I can remember what it is because it's so special that you agreed with me on. Thank you.
Uh, so nice to be able to walk this path with you all. Some new friends, some old friends, and all sweet friends. Sweet, sweet. But warms my heart.
It also, for me, brings up an intimacy with this distant past in which you were practicing at Jian, you were practicing at Providence Zen Center with Sun Sunim, our grand teacher, and this gathering with you is wonderful in the way that you act as a kind of conduit to the Quantum school of teachings of Sun Sunim. And not coincidentally, I don't believe, Quantum, as in the quantum school, is another way of speaking of Kanan or
Yeah.
Kanzeon, or it's compassion is built into the name and the structure of our school, of our
Yes.
lineage. And you coming today to bring that gift to us and bring it before us is just wonderful. And in its manifestation as the intimacy of not knowing, all the more wonderful. I think maybe that's what Linda was hinting at, that function of not knowing is most intimate. I mean, right?
Mhm.
The experience of being alive, of being a self, of not knowing what this self is being open to whatever is happening, with the uncertainties. I want to share that I had this wonderful experience with the practice of sitting with Kanzeon after a private session with Jian, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks ago, when we were preparing for this talk. And I sat immediately after our conversation the next morning and chanted Kanzeon and working a little bit with the Tibetan-based practice that John Tarrant referred to, of imagining Kanzeon, or this Avalokiteshvara above us, and then bringing it in, melting it into our beings. I went through that, and I have a difficulty often with this visualization practice of meditation in the Tibetan tradition. But this particular morning, it was no problem. And I imagined myself quite easily and immediately being Kanzeon, Kanan, and hearing the cries of the world. And they began not outside myself, but the cry inside. I heard myself longing, right, for this connection, for this meeting with Kanzeon. And then it opened to the world around me and the political stuff going on in Gaza and Ukraine, and it just the compassion that it awoke was immediate and clear and went everywhere in my experience of the world in the moment, with all this information about conflict and war and death and people stabbing each other in schools or shooting each other. It all sort of flooded in with the Kanzeon chanting. And I found relief from that inundation, that bewildering, kind of constant flow of information around me of the world of pain and suffering. There was relief once I really heard it and recognized it. It was a wonderful practice. And I thank you for bringing it out for us. And thank you.
This causes me to consider my own kind of thought as I'm listening to Danan, who wants to hear, feel all the, as I'm understanding all the sufferings of the world. I realize I don't. And I think I do hear and feel the sufferings of the world very intensely. And I think it keeps me in a constant state of a certain amount of pain because it's painful. But I also, I guess I also have to recognize that I don't want to constantly be in touch with it. That I use all sorts of everything, TV and food and entertainment and activities of all kinds to avoid being always cognizant of the suffering of the world. I wonder what you kind of have to say about that, Jian.
Yeah, it's funny that a lot of people I know and a lot of friends have stopped listening to news. Why? Because it's too painful. It's just a constant barrage. And I found the same thing, but I processed it a little differently, I believe, that I thought that you can't get away from it. You cannot listen to it, but it's there and you know it's there. And I believe that that's when it seeps in and does the most harm. So my direction is to let it in, face it, and see if that doesn't empower me, that I'm not just getting pummeled, but that I have tools too. But those tools, because of don't know, end up being that I become one with. So I become one with Kanzeon Bosal. I become one with Kanzeon. And then therefore you become one with the pain and one with yourself, and it transforms. It will transform. It won't transform if you're only receiving it as wounds, if you're only receiving it as knowledge of how bad things are. But through the help of don't know and Kanzeon, you can become one with. You can realize pain and suffering and what the function and activity of pain and suffering is. See the clouds as a compassionate offering from Kanzeon.
Here in Cloud Zendo.
And I think maybe what I sort of experience, or I'm getting at here is, I think I very much experienced the suffering of the world. And it's been a focus in my life in many respects for my whole life, really. But at this point, I feel like I experience the suffering in the world, but I'm not suffering. And that may or may not be, it feels like progress.
Yeah.
Well, I have a bad knee, that's suffering, but physical suffering for me is, I don't like it, but the emotional is so much worse.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, one idea is something I use, it could be tried, and that is to try to let in a small amount. It's just totally overwhelming, and that's, you know, like an avalanche. Pick one piece and chew on it. Ask for help from Kanzeon. I mean, you're a counselor, right? You were or are still. If you let in every angst from your clients, you would have been a basket case 50 years ago.
But it feels like I did let it in, and I did, and I know it's there, but it's like that's just sort of the world. There's I know it's there, and I would love everyone to be happy and have a wonderfully safe and beautiful and happy world. We would all be better off if that were the case, but it's so not the case. So how do we go ahead and be aware of it and allow it in? And again, I think I do, but not be overwhelmed by it, not be
Yeah.
suffering from it, because our suffering from it doesn't relieve anyone else's suffering.
Yeah. I use the small koan, what is this? What is this? So if I had a little suffering, I could ask. I feel it too. It starts to worm in there. And then I remember not to forget to remember to ask, what is this? What is this? And that puts it in a state of deep not knowing and deep inquiry. You're not asking for an answer. What is this? And then if it starts to get more painful, I ask, what is this? What's the deeper pain? And it will open. That's been my experience. What is this? Sincerely, what the hell is this? What on earth is this? What? That sincere question will be answered.
David?
Thank you, Jian.
Very welcome.
Jian, can you remind me what is your Dharma name mean? What's the?
My Dharma name seems to change depending on Bo-Moon's mood. About before the transmission, my name Jian was Compassion Cloud. Since the transmission, it is Compassionate Heart. Though the name has not changed, Jian, the mood has shifted a little bit.
Compassionate art?
Heart, Heart.
Can you hear? Can you hear the children?
Yes.
Well, maybe that's enough. And maybe you'll come back again, Jian.
Yes,
How could I resist?
Yeah.
You're my family.
there's more of those little koans.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Gosh,
much.
Thank you.
This is beautiful.
Thank you. And we tip, the tradition is when we collect dana, when there's a visiting teacher, we give it to the visiting teacher. And Jian has asked that dana go into an account for, what do we call it?
I look at it as a scholarship fund. People who can't make it to retreats because of high airfare or whatever may be assisted. And I've been assisted by the Single Flower Sangha and Cloud Zendo in the past for exactly that reason.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your generosity.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you around the universe.
Have a good weekend, y'all.
Kanzeon. You too.
Bye, Jian.
Stay safe, y'all.
He's not going away, is he?
He went.
Just
He left.
This is, I heard compassionate art.
I did too.
He-
So did I.
He manages a gallery in Wilmington, right, in North Carolina. And yeah, and they're always, every time I talk to him, he's hanging a new exhibit. So it's got to be a pretty happening gallery, right? And Jian is also an artist. He's made wonderful funerary urns, it's gorgeous. works. Photographs, paintings, this is part of a series that he did called Creation. And there, if you read on the back, you'll see that the camera used had lenses that